I made a terrible mistake in 2007. I bought a house in the desert that had no doors, thinking it was just a strange design choice. I didn't realize until it was too late that the open doorways weren't meant for us. They were for her, so she could watch us from every corner. In 2007, we fled Vista, California, chasing dreams that shimmered like mirages across the desert. I remember glancing at my wife in the passenger seat as the coast faded in the rearview mirror. Her hand rested on the center console, gripping mine tight, her eyes bright with a hope I hadn't seen in years. Joshua Tree promised everything our crowded coastal life couldn't offer: honest work, breathing room, and a family business we could build with our own hands. The optimism that carried us into that wasteland was intoxicating, dangerous, the kind that makes you ignore the whispers in your gut, the ones screaming at you to turn back while you still can. We found our piece of paradise just outside the borderlands between Joshua Tree and 29 Palms, a tiny house squatting on 2.5 acres of sand and scrub like something waiting, like it had always been there, patient and hungry. It was perfect, we told ourselves. Our son had just turned 2, all curiosity and wonder, and with the business requiring only 2 days a week, I'd finally have time to be the father I'd always promised myself I'd be. The work-life balance we'd been chasing for years materialized the moment we signed those papers. Standing on that barren plot with my wife and son, watching the sun bleed across the horizon like an open wound, I remember thinking we'd finally escaped. I should have recognized that feeling for what it was. Not peace, relief. The kind you feel in those last precious moments before you realize you've made a terrible mistake, one you can never, ever take back. The desert, I would learn, doesn't give, it only takes, and it had been waiting for us all along. The isolation settled over us like dust after a burial. The nearest town was a 15-minute drive through darkness so complete it felt solid, pressing against the windshield like something alive. And when you got there, you found nothing worth the trip. Just shuttered windows and the occasional porch light bleeding into the void. For real supplies, real life, you had to push on to Yucca Valley. 20 minutes of empty highway where your headlights were the only proof the world still existed, and even then, you weren't sure. We noticed things, small things at first, the kind you explain away because the alternative is admitting you've made a mistake you can't afford to fix. None of the rooms had doors, not a single one. Every doorway gaped open like a mouth caught mid-scream, creating an unbroken line of sight from one end of the house to the other. We joked about it at first, about the previous owners needing quick escape routes, about the open floor plan being ahead of its time, about California minimalism taken to its logical extreme. We stopped joking when we realized we couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. When every creak in the night echoed through those empty door frames like footsteps, like something methodically checking each room, one by one, searching. But it was my son who knew first. Children always know. Since we'd set up his crib in what should have been his room, he never stopped crying. A desperate primal sound that clawed at something deep and ancient in my chest. Some paternal instinct that recognized genuine terror when it heard it. He would stiffen in that crib, his tiny body rigid with a fear no 2-year-old should understand. No 2-year-old should be capable of understanding. My wife and I cycled through explanations like drowning people grasping at driftwood, the new house, homesickness, maybe even another baby on the way disrupting his sleep. We were so eager to rationalize, to make it normal, to make it anything but what it was. Then came the night I couldn't lie to myself anymore. I carried my son to his room for bed, and he started pointing. Not the vague gesture of a toddler discovering his hands, but a deliberate, trembling finger aimed at the closet, specifically at the top right-hand corner, where the darkness seemed to pool and gather, thicker somehow, more purposeful, more aware. Even after I closed the closet door, his eyes never left it. They tracked something I couldn't see, following movement in the shadows that shouldn't have been there. His gaze moved with the slow, steady precision of someone watching something real. I opened that closet 3 times, checked every corner, every inch, running my hands along the walls like I could feel whatever he was seeing. Found nothing but empty space and the smell of old wood and something else, something faint and wrong that I couldn't quite name. But my son kept staring, his little chest heaving with silent panic, his finger still pointing at that corner like he was trying to warn me, like he was begging me to see what he saw. I couldn't do it, couldn't leave him there alone with whatever lived in that darkness. I carried him back to the living room and held him until he finally, mercifully, fell asleep on the couch. His little fists unclenched, his breathing evened out. For one precious hour, he looked like any normal sleeping child, and I could almost pretend everything was fine. I thought maybe it was over, that whatever had frightened him had passed, had moved on to haunt some other family in some other house. When I carried him back to his crib, it took exactly 10 minutes. 10 minutes before the crying started again. But this wasn't crying. This was terror, pure and absolute and primal. He clawed at the air, at me, trying to climb out of that cradle with a strength that shouldn't have been possible for his small body. His eyes were locked on that corner again, wide and white, and seeing something that made every instinct I had, every ancient survival mechanism encoded in my DNA, scream to run, to grab my family and run and never look back. This went on for months. We'd put him down. He'd start crying. That same desperate, knowing cry that said something is wrong, something is here, why won't you listen? And we'd retrieve him, defeated and exhausted, telling ourselves it was a phase, that he'd grow out of it, that children are afraid of the dark, and this was normal, this was fine. We lied to ourselves because the truth was too expensive to face. Finally, out of options and sanity, we moved him to what had been the office. A smaller room, awkward and cramped, never meant for a child. We told ourselves it was temporary. He slept through the night immediately, never cried once, never looked at corners that shouldn't hold anything worth looking at. We told ourselves we'd solved the problem, that we'd found the answer, that there was a logical explanation. Maybe the room had better insulation. Maybe the airflow was different. Maybe. But late at night, when the desert wind rattled the windows and carried sounds that might have been coyotes or might have been something else, I'd walk past that empty room with no door to close. I'd stop. I'd stand in that doorway and stare at the closet, at that top right-hand corner where the darkness still gathered like something sleeping. And sometimes, just sometimes, I swear I could feel something staring back, waiting. When my son turned 3, I made a decision that still haunts me. I told my wife it was time for him to find the courage to move back into his room. We were being ridiculous, I said. We were enabling his fears, I said. He needed to face this, I said. I needed him to face this, because if he could sleep in that room, it would prove I was right. That there was nothing there. That we hadn't made a terrible mistake buying this house in the middle of nowhere, with no doors and something living in the closet. We changed his crib for a small bed. We redecorated his room with superheroes, bright, brave figures meant to make him feel safe, protected. We made it cheerful, normal, and safe. I applied to the same system as before. Let him fall asleep on the couch, his small body trusting and relaxed in my arms. Then, when I was sure he was deep under, I carried him to his small bed in his room. Precisely 10 minutes later, he came running out. But this time was different. This time, he wasn't crying. He was screaming, a sound I'd never heard him make before, raw and broken and knowing. Remember, there were no doors in that house, no barriers, no protection. He could run straight through that empty door frame, and he did, his bare feet slapping against the floor in blind panic. He pointed at the closet with both hands, his entire body shaking, and he tried to tell me. His 3-year-old words tumbled over themselves, desperate and terrified. Lady, lady in there, lady watching. I couldn't do this to him anymore. Couldn't keep forcing him to sleep in a room with something my wife and I couldn't see, but he could feel, could sense, could see standing in that top right-hand corner, watching him with eyes that didn't blink, that never looked away. There was a woman in that closet. My son knew it. And in that moment, standing in the doorway of that room with my terrified child in my arms, I knew it too. I was not going to stay there any longer, trying to figure out what she wanted. Why was she there? What she'd been doing in that corner all these months was watching my son sleep. Some questions are better left unanswered. By then it was already 2008, and the housing crash hit us hard. I lost my job, lost the business we'd moved out here to build. Most people would have seen it as a disaster. I took it as an opportunity. I sold that house as fast as I could, barely breaking even, not caring about the loss. The realtor asked why we were selling. I told her the commute was too long. I didn't tell her about the closet, about the corner where darkness pooled, about my son's screams or the feeling of being watched through doorways that had no doors to close. I didn't tell her because whoever bought that house deserved to make their own mistakes, to learn their own lessons. The desert teaches everyone eventually. We left Joshua Tree and never returned, not to visit, not to drive through, not even to remember if we could help it. That house had something in it, something patient, something that waited in the darkness of a closet corner for small children to notice it. And I have spent every day since thanking whatever God might be listening that we got out before it decided to do more than watch. Sometimes, late at night, I still wonder about it, about her, about what she wanted, about whether she's still there, standing in that top right-hand corner, waiting for the next family to move in, the next child to point and cry and see what their parents refuse to believe. I wonder if those new owners notice the missing doors, if they joke about it as we did, if they've started to feel watched yet,